Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Talks with Walt, as we are calling our readings through the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We turn now to a little poem to get the final lilt of songs. This is poem 28 of the 58 of Sands at 70, and we're going to be back now to Whitman as teacher or pedagogue and his consideration about lifelong learning. Now, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at LearnStrong.net, down that left-hand side, Talks with Walt, our playlist, and that you were with us from the very beginning, inscriptions up through and including, of course, the great statement of learning in Song of Myself 46-47, the Destroy the Teacher passage, and then finally a set of introductory comments to Sands at 70, and we just finished with Broadway. Now, our Nortons will tell us about this poem, that it was first published in the New York Herald, April 16, 1881, under the title, The Final Lilt of Songs. I love this little poem because it reminds us of the value of learning. And you'll remember that lilt has not yet been used. I mean, it's a word that's brand new to us now. We're going to see it one other times in Souls of the Winter in the second annex. Notice, to get the final lilt of songs, this idea of getting at something, understanding something, perspicacity. To get the final lilt of songs, to penetrate the inmost lore of poets, we could make the argument, that's why we are engaged in Talks with Walt. To know the mighty ones. Now here we go. Now this is going to be his list of the greats. And obviously everyone has maybe their own list of the greats. And it's interesting to see who's on this list and then who's not on this list. Notice, Job, of course the great character from the Hebrew Bible. Homer, we've mentioned him so often. Aeschylus, the great Greek tragic writer. Dante, how often have we spoken about him? Shakespeare, the towering giant. Tennyson, interesting. And of course Emerson won't shock us, those seven. Notice, most noticeably missing here is Milton, right? You could say Chaucer and Milton, but for sure Milton. Now here's the goal. To diagnose, think about, we could have given another P for Whitman. Not only Whitman as pedagogue or teacher, but Whitman as physician. To diagnose the shifting, delicate tense of love and pride and doubt. Notice those are three. To truly understand. To encompass these. Again, I told you about hugging, grasping. The last keen faculty and entrance price. Old age and what it brings from all its past experiences. Now this is why we say the new is the new. The N-E-W is the K-N-E-W. And when you pick up those classic texts that have, of course, always been challenged, even in their own time, but certainly today, challenged just like Leaves of Grass is challenged, what is the argument that we'll often make? Well, you got to pick up those great authors, and you got to read them. Are there faults? Are there flaws? Yeah. Are there cultural challenges to the time in which they lived? Of course. And yet, having said all of that, the goal is to try to impress upon each of us the value of lifelong learning. So let's go there at 2A. There's so much to be gained. There's so much to be learned if only we could find a way to learn it there. At 2B, notice again the interesting list that's provided of his greats. But again, Milton is missing from that list. Chaucer is maybe missing from that list. At 3A, I just want to mention the great Mortimer Adler, the inventor of the Great Books series. And of course, he's taken a lot of heat for that series. And what's not in that series, obviously, people of color as well as women. But having said all of that, to pick up those 2 volumes that he called the Centopicon and to read it, I certainly would challenge you guys to go and run that to ground. The great gateway drug to the great books, in my estimation, is his little book, How to Read a Book. I think you should probably take a look at it. And certainly that last few pages where he gives a 10-year suggested reading list, you could do a lot worse than take 10 years and try and run to ground all of those titles. I think it would be very useful for the lifelong pursuit, right, of learning. Finally, at 3B, in your estimation, what are the great texts? Who are the great authors to you? And is it possible that Walt Whitman now is soon to be in that pantheon? I certainly hope so. Thank you.